In small towns, winter isn't just cold. It's quiet. As quiet as snow-blanketed roads, as quiet as a park bench lost under a drift, as quiet as a sadness no one bothers to name. Hi everyone, welcome to Social Justice. Let's begin. Everbrook, a place where if you don't knock on someone's door for 3 winters in a row, people stop calling you a neighbor. Eli Thompson, 14, knew the cold well, not because of warm coats, but because his hands were always doing something, pushing his paper cart, shoveling snow, hauling water, keeping his little brother warm through the night. They say childhood should be carefree. But for Eli, mornings began before his mother's alarm. He let her sleep 15 minutes longer. She worked the night shift at the pharmacy. Came home past 1 a.m., her hands always swollen from the cold. That morning the snow was heavier than usual. The old shovel their neighbor had left them broke last year, so Eli tied it back together with a frayed power cord. He dragged it behind his bike. The wheels smaller than they should be, worn to the rims through all of autumn. No one told him to clear the snow, but if he didn't, the elderly wouldn't make it to the door. The mailman might skip the house, and someone might slip and fall. Amid rows of silent homes, Eli stopped at the last house on the block, a weathered red brick mansion nestled beside a line of pines. No lights were on. The walkway was buried to the doorstep. No footprints, no tire tracks. No one home. Still, Eli bent down and began to shovel, not for money, not because someone asked, just because something told him that house needed to be touched. The wind stung his face. His hoodie was too thin, only one glove left. Each shovel felt heavier than the last. Each breath scratched his lungs like sandpaper, but Eli didn't stop. After 20 minutes, the path from the steps to the gate was clear. He collapsed on the front step, panting, lungs filled with icy air, when the door creaked open. A frail voice, the sound of hinges groaning. An elderly woman with snow-white hair stood inside. She didn't say thank you. She just looked at Eli with an unreadable gaze and asked, "Aren't you afraid of wasting your effort if people give you nothing?" Eli squinted into the sunlight and smiled. "I didn't really think about it, ma'am. Just saw your path needed clearing." The old woman gave a small nod. No smile, no hug, no promises. She simply closed the door, as if Eli's answer had awakened something long asleep inside her. Eli stood. He wiped sweat, cold sweat, from his brow and turned back to his bicycle, unaware that this moment would begin a chain of events that would change all of Everbrook. 2 days later, the snow was still falling. It had blanketed the streets all night, leaving the far end of Everbrook looking like a forgotten dream. But something felt different that morning. The red brick house, no smoke rising from the chimney, no warm yellow light behind the curtains, only an ambulance parked in the driveway. No sirens, no rush, just silence, as silent as the person who had passed inside. Agatha Whitmore had died in her sleep. No one knew exactly when. A neighbor noticed when the mailbox remained full for 3 days. In a town like Everbrook, the death of a wealthy woman wasn't just news. It was a subject to whisper about, to guess, to hope, because Agatha had no children, no husband, no close relatives, only money and a house echoing with emptiness. The news spread like winter wind. At the corner store, people murmured, "I heard she owned stock in 3 food companies. Probably left it all to some big charity. Or maybe that old lawyer found her will and adjusted it a little." Eli knew none of this. He was still pushing his old paper cart down the icy streets, still picking up papers the wind had blown off porches, still waving to Mr. Wilson on his front stoop. Even if Mr. Wilson never waved back, he didn't follow the gossip. He only saw the snow was piling up again in front of Mrs. Whitmore's house, and no one inside needed a path anymore. That evening in their tiny kitchen, Eli's mom sat quietly scanning the gas bill. Eli, tired and hungry, tried to finish his math homework. "Take tomorrow off, sweetheart. It's Sunday. I'll pick up an extra morning shift." "It's okay, Mom. I want to go. I still owe that lady one more round of shoveling." She looked at him as if she wanted to say something, then stopped, because she knew Her son didn't need a reward to keep being kind. On Sunday morning, a small memorial was held at the town hall. No elaborate floral arrangements, no sea of black coats. Just a few familiar faces, a few who came out of obligation, and one name about to shake the entire town. Eli didn't attend. He stayed home helping his mom cook porridge for his little brother. No one invited him, and he didn't think he had a reason to be there. But inside the solemn town hall of Everbrook, an elderly lawyer with silver hair stood up. His hands trembled slightly as he held a thin stack of papers. His voice, though soft, was steady. On behalf of Mrs. Agatha Whitmore, I will now read her final and legally binding will, signed 3 days before her passing. The room stilled. Chairs creaked. Someone whispered, "This is it." Then the lawyer read, "I, Agatha Whitmore, in full clarity of mind and by my own free will, bequeath all of my assets, including my home, bank accounts, stocks, belongings, and property deeds, to Eli Thompson, age 14, son of Rebecca Thompson, the boy who cleared my walkway in the snow without expecting anything in return." Silence. Not the kind of silence from shock, but the kind that falls when every guess, every selfish hope, every hidden envy is buried beneath a blanket of white snow. A name no one had considered, a boy many had passed by without so much as a hello. And Eli, at that very moment, was sitting by the window, his chin resting on his hand, blowing gently on a mug of hot cocoa, completely unaware that he had just become the most talked-about person in Everbrook. It didn't take long for the news to spread across town. By Monday morning, from the barber shop to the pharmacy, from the bakery to the school parking lot, everyone was saying the name Eli Thompson. The poor kid who shoveled snow, he inherited the whole estate. Was that old woman crazy, giving everything to a random boy? I heard he had no idea, just helped out by accident and got lucky. At school, Eli became the most mentioned name, not by teachers, but by people who had never even cared to remember it before. A few classmates gave awkward grins. "Hey, Eli, guess you're rich now, huh?" Others whispered behind his back, "He's got to be hiding something. No one's that nice without a plan." Even a teacher, one who had once told his mother, "Your son doesn't participate much," was now all smiles, asking, "Do you need help with legal stuff? I know someone who can assist you." Eli didn't know how to respond. He just wanted to go home early. But on his way back, a stranger pulled up beside him in a car. "Are you Eli Thompson? I'm a reporter from the local station. Mind answering a few questions about the will?" He shook his head, then ran off. The cold wind cut through his thin jacket. That chill felt exactly like the day he shoveled snow, only now the world around him had changed. That evening, Eli's mom came home quietly. At the pharmacy, some co-workers had looked at her with eyes that mixed admiration and envy. She set a grocery bag on the table, sat down, and gently took her son's hand. "They've invited us to the town hall tomorrow. They want to talk about Mrs. Agatha's estate. Mom, would you be upset if I didn't want to keep all of it?" She looked at him. It was a gaze full of understanding and heartache. "That's yours, Eli, because you were kind. I just want you to live in a way that feels right to you." Eli said nothing. He didn't fully understand what inheritance meant, nor how much it was worth. He only knew this. Suddenly, everything he touched was followed by someone else's gaze, and sometimes those gazes felt heavier than all the bags of salt he had carried last winter. The next morning, Eli and his mother stepped into the red brick mansion for the first time since Mrs. Agatha passed. The estate manager opened the door and respectfully led them inside. The house hadn't changed, quiet, dusty, and still faintly scented with peppermint tea. In the living room, an envelope lay on the table, neatly marked in delicate handwriting. "For Eli, the one who cleared my path without asking for the way." Eli opened it. No money, no complicated instructions, just a single sheet of paper written in trembling but straight lines. I have lived long enough to see how people judge one another, but you saw me in silence. That can't be bought, can't be taught, and no one can be forced to give it. Thank you for doing the right thing when no one was watching. Now I want the whole town to see it too. Eli folded the letter. He said nothing, just looked at his mother, and for the first time, whispered, "Mom, I don't want to keep it all. Maybe we could share it, to help someone else who's cold or hungry or quiet like I once was." In the same red brick mansion that once held only silence and cold, Eli now stood before the fireplace where Agatha used to sit. He reached out, warming his hands over a flame, not of wood, but of intention. "I don't need a big house to live. I need a place where no one else has to live in the cold." His mother said nothing. She didn't stop him, didn't question him, she just let the tears fall. Because sometimes the most powerful thing isn't saying the right words, but having a heart that hears the right thing from a child. 1 week later, the town of Everbrook stood stunned as a new sign appeared outside the old red brick mansion. "Agatha's Hearth, a winter shelter for the elderly. Kindness needs no conditions. Here, being human is enough." The news spread as quickly as melting snow off a rooftop. Joe, a retired coal miner who had lived alone in a damp attic room, was invited to move in. Ms. Edith, once stuck in a distant nursing home, now had a warm room with a window overlooking a rose garden. 2 blind elderly men who had lived behind the old Eastern warehouse were brought in, and for the first time in years, they had hot water to bathe in. Eli didn't say much. He didn't like cameras. He didn't crave attention. He simply bought more blankets, hung nameplates on each door, and told every volunteer, "Don't call this a shelter, call it a home, because everyone deserves a place to call home." At school, the grown-up curiosity quickly turned into genuine respect. The principal invited Eli to speak at the Monday morning assembly. Eli declined. Instead, he sent a short message to be read on his behalf. "I don't need anyone to admire me for being lucky. I just hope that when you see someone in need, you won't wait for someone to notice, and you won't wait to be thanked." And then, something strange began to happen in Everbrook. Students formed volunteer snow shoveling groups for the elderly. The bakery at the end of Main Street hung a new sign, "If you're cold, come in, warm up with free cocoa, thanks to Eli." A man who once whispered that Eli had just got lucky came to Agatha's hearth one day, quietly placed a box of new clothes by the door, and walked away without leaving a name. Even those who had never liked Eli began to learn how to respect him, not for the inheritance, but for what he chose to do with it. "That kid, he's someone I want my children to look up to. He showed us that kindness doesn't have an age. I was never taught that, but maybe now my kids are watching it happen." On a quiet weekend evening, as snow blanketed the town in silence, Eli stood alone on the front steps of the mansion. Through the windows, the warm glow of lights shimmered, accompanied by gentle laughter from those whose bodies and memories had finally been warmed again. His mother stepped out and gently wrapped a coat around his shoulders. Are you tired?" she asked. He shook his head. "No, Mom, today feels a lot warmer, not because of the weather, but because people are inside." One late winter morning, as snow drifted lazily outside the frosted window, a small box appeared at the front door of Agatha's hearth. No name, just a folded note with delicate slanted handwriting. Part of her still wanted to say thank you. Inside was an old leather-bound notebook, its spine worn, pages slightly yellowed at the edges. On the first page it read simply, "The journal of someone who once believed no one cared about her anymore. Agatha Whitmore." Eli turned the first few pages. The handwriting was shaky, an elderly hand, but clear, steady, and deeply human. "November 15th, I turned 82 today. I think if I vanished tonight, no one would notice. November 22nd. The cold has begun. I wonder if anyone will remember to clear the snow this year." December 3rd, a boy came. He didn't say a word, cleared the whole walkway without waiting for a thank you. December 3rd, night. First time in 4 years I brewed myself a pot of tea. Eli kept reading. On the final page, there was no diary entry, just a short note, written just for him. Eli, you may not remember every small gesture you made, but I do. I once had money, recognition, a whole life behind me, but I'd never seen someone bend down to shovel snow simply because they thought a stranger might not be able to do it themselves. Thank you for letting me leave this world with gratitude in my heart. I hope you use the rest of this gift to sow what you've already planted, not a house, but a way of life. Eli closed the notebook. His hands trembled, not from cold, but because something deep inside him was trembling like the first wind chime that signals the arrival of spring. March came, the ice melted, and the earth revealed patches of damp soil beneath. People around Everbrook began planting again. Saplings around the town square, flowers near doorsteps, hope in quiet corners. Next to the small monument honoring those who had contributed to Everbrook, a new wooden plaque was quietly installed, not by the government, but by the people. It read, "To Eli, the first boy to shovel the snow, and to everyone who believes that small acts can soften the winter in someone else's heart." The following year, no house with elderly residents was left snow-covered. No community groups were needed. No official announcements, no calls for volunteers. It simply happened. Automatically, willingly, because on every street, under every porch, people remembered there had once been a boy who shoveled snow without waiting to be thanked. One early spring afternoon, a fifth-grade boy stopped in front of Eli's house. He was holding a snow shovel. His nose was red from the chill. "Are you Eli Thompson, sir? I want to help clear the path at Agatha's hearth. My mom said, if you want to grow up to be a good person, start with your first shovel." Eli smiled. He didn't reply. He simply picked up another shovel and handed it to the boy, and just like that, the next winter began with 2 people, 1 shovel, and 1 heart ready to warm someone they didn't even know. If you loved this story, don't forget, like to help kindness go further. Subscribe for more true, heartfelt stories that move the soul. And check out the next video. It's one you don't want to miss. See you in the next story.